Tonight, no time to waste. President Obama wants answers this week on why authorities missed warning signs before the Christmas Day terror attack.
A systemic failure has occurred, and I consider that totally unacceptable.
Plus, a CBS News exclusive. The CIA was actually tracking Abdul Muttalib months ago. I'm Harry Smith. Also tonight, the debate over high-tech scanners. Experts say this one might have detected the explosives, but critics say it robs innocent passengers of their privacy. And from lemons to lemonade, they lost their jobs, but not the American spirit.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening. Katie is off tonight. It was the strongest statement yet we've heard from President Obama since the Christmas Day attempt to blow up Flight 253. Speaking in Hawaii today, the president said a systemic failure allowed the attack to take place. Warning signs were missed, and he wants preliminary results from 2 investigations in his hands by Thursday. This, as CBS News has learned exclusively, the CIA began tracking the suspect, Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalib, in August, 3 months before his father warned authorities about him. But investigators failed to connect the dots. More on that in a moment. But we begin with Chip Reid, who's traveling with the president in Hawaii. Chip?
Well, Harry, after 3 days of silence and a very matter-of-fact tone yesterday, today President Obama was surprisingly harsh as he criticized failures that led to what he called a potentially catastrophic breach of security.
When our government has information on a known extremist, and that information is not shared and acted upon as it should have been, so that this extremist boards a plane with dangerous explosives that could have cost nearly 300 lives, a systemic failure has occurred, and I consider that totally unacceptable.
Specifically, the president faulted intelligence officials for failing to take appropriate action after the suspect's father told authorities about his son's extremist views.
It now appears that weeks ago, this information was passed to a component of our intelligence community, but was not effectively distributed so as to get the suspect's name on a no-fly list.
And he said there was other unspecified information about the suspect that should have been pieced together.
Had this critical information been shared, it could have been compiled with other intelligence, and a fuller, clearer picture of the suspect would have emerged. The warning signs would have triggered red flags, and the suspect would have never been allowed to board that plane for America.
The president also praised the intelligence community for saving countless American lives in recent years, but he said he was deeply disappointed in their performance in this particular case. Harry?
Chip Reid in Hawaii tonight. Thanks. As Chip reported, the president said there were other unspecified red flags that should have been pieced together. Chief investigative correspondent Armin Katayan has uncovered some of them in this exclusive report.
CBS News has learned that as early as August of 2009, the Central Intelligence Agency was picking up information on a person of interest dubbed the Nigerian, suspected of meeting with terrorist elements in Yemen. Sources tell CBS News the Nigerian has now turned out to be Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalib. But that connection was not made when Abdul Muttalib's father went to the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria 3 months later on November 19, 2009, and gave that warning to the CIA about his son's ties to suspected al-Qaeda operatives in Yemen. In fact, CBS News has learned that none of this information was connected until after the attempted Christmas Day bombing.
We must get better at collecting these bits of information, putting them together at a central point, analyzing them, and then acting.
Also today, the foreign minister of Yemen told the Times of London there may be scores of trained young militants ready to follow in the footsteps of Abdul Muttalib. The minister saying they may actually plan attacks like the one we just had in Detroit. There may be hundreds of them, 200, 300. A Yemeni-based al-Qaeda group has claimed responsibility for the attack, praising Abdul Muttalib's attempt to blow up Flight 253 with about 3 ounces of the powerful explosive PETN, stashed inside this pair of specially made underwear. For many, the global security breach represents the kind of system failure detailed in the 9/11 Commission report.
We're sharing information far better than we did prior to 9/11. But this incident surely illustrates that we've got a long ways to go.
In a statement, a CIA spokesman didn't dispute our report, saying the agency didn't have Abdulmutallab's name until November. At that time, they said they worked to ensure he was in the government's terrorist database and forwarded his name to the National Counterterrorism Center. The CIA says it is now reviewing all data per the president's request to determine if more could have been done to stop the suspect.
Armen Keteyian, thanks. Security agencies have been plagued by more than just communication breakdowns since 9/11. 8 years and $40 billion later, the country's defenses against would-be terrorists are still a work in progress. Here's Wyatt Andrews.
When Farouk Abdulmutallab attempted to trigger an in-flight explosion, he also rekindled the fear every security official has felt since 9/11 of a passenger smuggling explosives on an airplane.
The number one area we need to focus on, the biggest potential vulnerability, is a bomb on the body.
Eliminating that vulnerability has been a problem. 8 years since Richard Reid tried to ignite his shoes, and 5 years since the 9/11 Commission pointedly said the TSA and Congress must give priority attention to detecting explosives on passengers, no clear solution has emerged. For example, when passengers remove their shoes, the X-ray can detect alterations in the shoe, but not the chemicals from a bomb. When most passengers go through a domestic machine, does that detect explosives?
No, it only detects metal.
For years, the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration, thought the solution was puffer machines, which do sniff out explosives. But $30 million later, one problem.
What we found is the machines were constantly clogging and were out of service, and that actually you end up in worst case than not having them at all.
Former TSA Administrator Kip Hawley and other officials say the next best choice is full-body imaging machines. These don't detect chemicals either, but could have found the package Abdulmutallab sewed into his underwear.
And if they try to hide it under the clothes, it will come out, and then the officer can call for further follow-up.
The system still has plenty of other ways to find bombs. Dogs are used now more than ever before. And when passengers get sent to what's called secondary screening, that's where your bags get swabbed, right there those machines do detect bomb-making chemicals. Officials insist if Abdulmutallab had in any way been flagged as a threat, he would have gone to secondary screening and been caught right there. Harry?
Wyatt Andrews at Reagan National tonight, thanks. By the way, 2 agencies created after 9/11 to keep potential terrorists off airplanes have been without chiefs for nearly a year. The Transportation Security Administration, as well as Customs and Border Protection. President Obama has made nominations to both posts, but the Senate hasn't acted on either of them. In the case of the TSA, a Republican senator blocked the nomination because he's concerned the new leader would try to unionize employees. Juan Zarate is CBS News national security analyst. He joins us tonight from Los Angeles. Juan, good evening.
Thank you, Harry. Good evening.
For several days now, we have been talking about this failure to connect these dots. Why is it so difficult, or why does it seem to be anyway?
Well, I think there are multiple reasons, Harry. First of all, you still have various databases used by the U.S. government for different purposes. Some for vetting folks who are on flights, others for looking at suspicious activity in terrorist groups. And so you have multiple data. People also have to remember you have huge amounts of data out there, often in pieces and parts, and it still takes scud work, really hard work on the part of analysts to put pieces together. And I think in this case, what we may find is that people just weren't able to put the pieces together with enough time to figure out that this individual was a real danger to aviation.
Still, at the same time, Abdulmutallab's name was on a watch list, not on the no-fly list, but on a watch list of some 500,000 names. How does that not at least earn him a pat-down in Nigeria or in Amsterdam?
Well, Harry, there are actually there's criteria for the different lists that exist in the U.S. government, including for the no-fly list and then the selectee list, which is the list that requires the secondary search of an individual trying to travel. The government just did not have enough information developed about him, didn't put the pieces together to determine that he was enough of a danger to put him on the no-fly list or the selectee list.
And very quickly, we've been talking also a lot about Yemen the last couple of days. How serious a threat are these seemingly hundreds more like Abdul Muttalib who would follow in his footsteps.
The problem of Yemen as a potential safe haven is serious, Harry. This is something that counterterrorism officials have been looking at for some time. Al-Qaeda has a presence there. Yemen is unstable and dealing with multiple threats, a rebellion in the north, secessionists in the south. And so this is a real problem. And if Al-Qaeda there is reaching out and trying to touch the homeland directly from Yemen, I think we've got a new problem on our hands, and the administration has to take a very close look at this.
Juan Zarate in L.A. tonight. Thank you. Now to Iran, which is reportedly close to striking an illicit deal for a huge supply of uranium from individuals in Kazakhstan. That would be a serious new provocation in the international dispute over Iran's nuclear program. The Associated Press quotes a secret UN intelligence report as saying Tehran wants to buy 1,350 tons of purified uranium ore. The reported price, $450 million. In Iran today, protest leaders and reform politicians once again felt the hardline government's wrath. As Elizabeth Palmer reports, the often violent confrontation that's gone on for months now has come at a steep price.
Opposition protesters who battled Iranian police on Sunday knew a crackdown was coming, and it has. Less than 48 hours after the deadly riots, hundreds of leading opposition figures have been arrested, including the sister of Nobel Prize winner Shireen Ebadi and a brother-in-law of opposition leader Mir Hossein Mousavi. Mousavi's family has been singled out in the crackdown. His nephew was among those killed on Sunday. Witnesses say he was shot in the chest. Today, as Mousavi paid a condolence visit to the family, the Iranian government was once again blaming the violence on meddling from the U.S. and Britain. State television has broadcast pictures of a huge pro-government rally, the crowd calling for opposition protesters to be executed. But the opposition shows no sign of backing down. It's calling for another march on Thursday. Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, London.
Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, some say it will make our skies safer. Others call it a digital strip search. As we mentioned earlier, travelers can expect to see more full-body imaging machines soon. Authorities in Chicago said today several are coming to O'Hare Airport. Nationwide, 150 will be installed next year. Daniel Seberg takes a closer look at these machines and the controversy surrounding them in tonight's Eye on Technology.
Back check on board! The future of airport security may be getting clearer, a lot clearer. Experts are renewing the call for body scanners, more revealing and potentially invasive.
If you want to keep these devices off airplanes, then we as a society have to give up certain of our rights, and I personally believe that it's a fair trade-off.
There are two kinds of body scanners. In 19 airports, the TSA currently uses millimeter wave technology. Transmitters rotate around the passenger and send out radio waves to create a three-dimensional picture. Less invasive, say privacy experts, are backscatter machines. They use a low-level X-ray to scan one side of a person's body in 8 seconds.
Was it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But the improvement is just vast compared to the types of screening that's done now.
As a test of the backscatter technology, I'm carrying about 3 ounces of fake explosives hidden somewhere on me. That's about the same amount of explosive material that Abdul Muttalib smuggled on board the plane. The machine, which costs about $100,000, picked up the small plastic bag tucked in my waistband. Thanks to a software filter, my face comes up like this. Even so, privacy experts worry that if misused, it could become a high-tech peep show.
There's real risk here because the machines are designed and are capable of taking detailed naked images.
The same technology can also be used to scan luggage to spot hidden objects. This shows a direct comparison between the current TSA bag screener and the backscatter machine, which picks out a gun hidden behind some items. It may seem intrusive, but a recent TSA study found that more people prefer a body scan to a pat-down. Daniel Seberg, CBS News, Boston.
Coming up, better care at lower cost, one hospital's revolutionary approach to treatment. Ginkgo biloba is one of the most popular herbal supplements. Americans spend $250 million a year on it, hoping to improve their memory and slow cognitive decline. But a U.S. government study out today says it doesn't work. A spokesman for the supplements industry disputes the findings. To the healthcare debate now, where all sides agree that medical care costs way too much. But one hospital in Texas is saving money and lives. Don Teague shows us how they do it.
8 days after nearly dying of congestive heart failure,
I need to transport out.
James Rust is checking out of Baylor University Medical Center.
Thank you.
Much to his wife's relief.
Had you seen him a week ago, you probably thought you would be attending his funeral on Tuesday.
Fully recovering will be a long road. Nationwide, 1 out of every 4 heart failure patients must be readmitted to the hospital within 30 days of discharge. But for Rust, the odds are greatly improved. The readmission rate for Baylor heart patients like Rust is just 15.9%, the lowest in the nation.
We make certain almost from the beginning that we're planning for the discharge.
Dr. Clyde Yancey credits a commitment to quality for Baylor's remarkably low readmissions and something else.
It looks like your blood pressure is a little high today.
Strict follow-up and education for heart patients. Nurse May Centeno runs Baylor's outpatient heart clinic, which provides weekly checkups for discharged patients and teaches them to identify signs of trouble, like rapid weight gain or shortness of breath.
We have to provide them the necessary tools that they need so they could take care of themselves.
The program is so proactive that when Centeno discovered many of her patients didn't have weighing scales at home, she used a $20,000 grant to buy hundreds of scales with dramatic results.
By providing the patients the weighing scale, we were able to reduce our 30-day readmission rate by 50%.
Cutting readmission rates in half because patients could see immediately if they were gaining weight in a dangerous way.
Baylor credits its heart failure program with saving hundreds of lives over the past 3 years. But it also saves money because patients who receive the proper care and follow-up are much less likely to find themselves back in the hospital.
This hospital has saved, on average, $1,800 per heart patient, results that would save $1.8 billion nationwide if applied to the 1 million people who are hospitalized for heart failure yearly.
What the Baylor folks have done is recognize that they're taking care not just of diseased hearts, but they're taking care of human beings.
Thank you very much.
People like James Rust, who hopefully won't be back in the hospital anytime soon.
Bye-bye.
Don Teague, CBS News, Dallas.
Next, take a lost job in a bad economy, add a dash of American spirit, and you get a glass half full of lemonade. We close tonight with an old saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Seth Doane has the story of an aspiring filmmaker who did exactly that in a sweet demonstration of the American spirit.
It's opening night for a film with an opening line that many know too well.
Got my cell phone out and I texted my wife and I just wrote, fired.
There was just this moment of shock. I mean, it was really like someone had punched me in the chest.
That feeling is all too familiar for the more than 15 million unemployed Americans. But this film's no sob story.
My boss came to me and said there's going to be layoffs. Basically, your head's on the chopping block. And I was like, cool.
And that's the twist Lemonade takes, as it tells the tale of 16 folks from the advertising industry who lost their livelihoods but found their lives.
When you get laid off, it's not a pink slip, it's a blank page.
It sure was for the film's creator, Eric Prue, an ad exec who knew little about filmmaking but a lot about unemployment. Looking for work after his third layoff, he turned to the web and found people actually thankful they'd been fired. And in that, an idea for a film.
I have to get people talking about how losing their job ended up being the best thing that ever happened to them. Because it's really hard to see that when you're in the middle of it.
Eric was in the middle of it, right along with his family and a mortgage. Still, it was his wife who convinced him to follow his newfound passion and make this movie, even though it meant draining their savings.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul and going debt on top of debt is not something that's easy to crawl out of.
There's a reality to losing your job that's quite frightening.
Absolutely.
So he's living on faith that Lemonade will make it big, land a distribution deal, and make money. Meanwhile, he and the others in the film just feel lucky, exploring new dreams. Such as roasting coffee, painting full-time, or becoming a yoga instructor.
I'm just happier. Just happier.
Happier because instead of just making do, it's a do-over. Hitting the reset button and seizing the chance to start anew.
Thank you very much for coming.
Seth Doane, CBS News, Boston.
And if you know someone who has the American spirit, let us know at cbsnews.com. That's the CBS Evening News. For Katie Couric, I'm Harry Smith. I'll see you back here tomorrow night and first thing tomorrow on The Early Show. Good night.